Okay, so in the last couple of weeks, I've had more questions on Shane, can you help me invest in commercial real estate? Or I'm looking to raise capital. Those are generally the questions that I hear. And I think a lot of the struggles and challenges are really just, I'm going to back up for a second. This is the first time I've went on YouTube doing this live. So hopefully it works out okay. But sometimes you just have to try something new and go from there. So back to some of the conversations I've been having. The problems I think really boil down to how do I find deals? How do I raise money? How do I underwrite a deal? How do I talk to brokers? I don't have any credibility. What questions should I ask? Who should I believe and trust? And I think really it comes down to, is this a good investment or a good deal? Because if you've never invested in commercial real estate, it can be new and intimidating. And once investors get over those challenges, the next struggle or commonality that I see with investors is they generally take a very tactical approach. And what I mean by that is tactical versus being strategic, or what I call the programmatic investor. A tactical investor will look at lots of markets, right? They'll be all over the place. They'll look at all different kind of asset classes. It might be retail one day, industrial, multifamily, mobile home parks. And unfortunately, what happens when you are jumping around looking at lots of different asset classes in different markets, it's very difficult to have confidence in your ability to assess the risk in an investment. At least that's been my experience. Okay, so everything I'm sharing with you are what I've learned. Doing it for the past, I've been investing for 15 years, but in commercial real estate for about since 2007. So if this helps, that's great. You don't have to accept or take everything that I share with you, but I think when you can get behind the scenes and you can see how very successful people, some of the mentors I've had, and I've been very fortunate to work with some pretty incredible people, that's really what I want to share with you today. So taking a very strategic approach to the type of investments I think is would benefit most new investors to commercial real estate. And how do you do that though, right? Just saying it is one thing, but then actually applying it in practicality, or in practical terms. So first, and this is actually a gentleman I was coaching yesterday, very successful businessman. And I always find it interesting, and I shouldn't though, because even in my own business, sometimes it's very easy to look at someone else and say, oh, you should be doing X, Y, and Z, or helping them kind of get clarity on it. But when it comes down to your own goals, for example, and your investment thesis and philosophy, it's very easy to maybe ignore some of the ways to actually set goals and why you're setting them. And so having someone else, like a sounding board, help you think that through, I think is valuable. So what is the goal that you're looking for? And I'll give you a great example. So I'm not going to tell you the gentleman's name, but let's just say his target or goal was 10,000 in passive income a month. Okay, so if that's the goal that we're going for, the next step is to say, where are we starting at? How much capital do you have right now? What resources do you have? How much time do you have? How much time do you want to put into this? And in some cases, some investors, physicians, business owners that have maybe more income than time say, you know what? I just want to be able to properly assess and see really good deal flow. Okay, well then you know what your strategy is. Others are successful real estate investors, maybe in the residential world, and they're now saying, okay, I want to get into commercial. How do I do that? Okay, well, here are strategies that we can look at for you, right? How do you find the right deals? How do you finance them? How do you raise capital? How do you structure your deals with limited partners? Maybe you want to do joint ventures with institutional partners. I mean, there's a whole host of opportunities. It really comes down to, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Do you need someone else to help you? Whether that's a coach or a partner or someone else. But those are, I guess, some different ways to kind of think about it. Now, I'll kind of drill down a little bit on the clarity and setting a goal, if you will, because this is something I've been working on myself, right? So I hire coaches, and my coach Daniel and I have been doing this for the past 2 weeks. And so what I'll do every once in a while is I'll kind of jump on and share some of the lessons that I've learned. Obviously, my calls are about 90 minutes, so I can't do that here. But what I will do is my best to give you some of the highlights that I think will be the most valuable. So first is, and we've touched on it, but getting clarity. So how much passive income do you want? I mean, even if you had a piece of paper right now and just wrote it down. I remember the first time I set goals, I was in LA. I don't even know why I did it, but I was sitting in the airport and I literally on like a note card, like no bigger than this. And the reason I know it is I found it like 10 years later, but I wrote down 5 goals, and one was to buy a car, get married by 30. I wanted to buy a house, and it was all these things. I just graduated university, and it's amazing because I didn't think I looked at that card again for years. And I wouldn't suggest that. I think it really does make sense to actually look at your goals on a frequent basis. But if you can say, what is the goal? And let's talk about specifically for commercial real estate investing. So it could be, I want passive income to replace my expenses. I want passive income to retire my wife, or I want passive income to send my kids to school, whatever that happens to be. Okay. Step 1. Step 2 is, and that kind of ties into it, which is, why do you want it? Because I make no claims that investing in commercial real estate is easy. So I think that if you take the approach and the long-term mindset that it's going to potentially be a struggle, it's going to be difficult, but understanding the reason it's difficult prevents a lot of would-be investors that are looking for the next best thing or easy way to make money overnight. Those people rarely, if ever, make it into the world of commercial real estate because it does require focus. It requires capital. It requires energy. And so just understanding that, going with the proper expectations, I think is important. So after you've got clarity, where are you starting from? What are the resources that you have at your disposal? Could be knowledge, time, people, capital, trapped equity, could be properties that you own right now that are earning, a lot of residential investors that I talk to, they generate 1 or 2 or maybe even 3% cash on cash. Well, if you can move that equity into an 8 or 10%, I'm not giving any financial, legal, tax advice, none of that kind of stuff. I'm just basically trying to get your mind to think about what are the opportunities. So hopefully you can just start to look around and say, okay, these are my assets. Is there any areas, let's say I have a few rental properties or condos, I could take out, a home equity line of credit or some sort of a line of credit, and I could put that, or I could maybe sell something and I could put it into a property that has higher cash flow. I mean, those are just different ways to think about it. And you have to figure out what's right for you. Obviously, if you have a coach, then you can kind of go through that in a deeper analysis, but I'm just really trying to give you some awareness. Okay. And then step 3 is, what are the obstacles in your way? So generally speaking, there's going to be, where you want to get to, where you are, but how do you go from point A to point B? And in some cases, you can potentially figure it out on your own. That is one way to do it. And there's other ways. You can find someone else that's gone before you and model what they've done. You can hire someone that's done it. There's lots of different ways. And I think really what I want to talk about today are, we'll get to that in a second. So step 1 is getting clarity. Step 2, and what I call kind of like, it's almost like phase 2 in what I train and coach my clients on. And I'm just being sensitive to time because I have a call with my lawyer in about 9 minutes on a rather big deal that I'm working on right now. So I'm going to have to just kind of go through this fairly quickly. If I miss anything, I'll apologize. It'll have to go into next week's podcast. So phase 2, after you get clarity and you get a solid foundation, goes into finding deals, financing deals, and optimizing deals. So some of the things that you would really want to focus in on are in finding properties, for example, understanding the importance of market timing, understanding, good properties from bad properties, right? Cash flow, underwriting, risks. What is it that you're looking for in a property? underwriting those deals, due diligence, checklists, questions to ask. So those are going to be, negotiating. So that would be on the finding properties. Next, when it comes to raising capital, that's both debt and equity. Debt, obviously, that's pretty self-explanatory. Equity, some investors come to me and they say, Shane, I've got enough money. I can pull the trigger. I don't need investors. Perfect. Others will come to me and say, you know what, I've got some money, but I am looking for, I can probably bring 10 to 25% of the equity. Can you help me raise capital from other accredited high net worth investors? Perfect. How do I structure those deals? Here's how we do it. What's the pitch deck look like? How do you have those conversations? How do you structure it? What goes into it? So those are on the debt and capital raising. And then last is optimizing. So once you actually close on a property, how do you actually execute and optimize it? When I say optimize, what I'm really talking about is like fixing any of the problems. Maybe it's maybe it's high vacancy, low rents. Maybe there's an opportunity to really what you're trying to do is increase the net operating income or the NOI. And the reason for that is commercial real estate is valued on the income. So if you're able to drive the NOI, you're able to actually increase the value of the property by a multiple, right? If it's a 5% cap rate, really when you add $1 of revenue, it's really a 20 times multiple. So obviously cap rates are going to vary depending on the markets that you're in, but that just gives you an idea. So this is kind of the, what I was just looking at in terms of how to run through that. Okay. What do I want to talk about next? I just want to be mindful. I think what I want to do is maybe just give two more perspectives. And that is, if you're considering commercial real estate, and most of the people that come through and contact me are active investors. They say, Shane, I want to learn to do what it is that you do. Perfect. The other group, which is growing, is investors that say, Shane, I have money, but I don't have a lot of time and I'm not really sure I want to be an expert at what it is that you do. How do I learn how to invest safely into someone else's deal? Okay, perfect. In either event or in either situation, active or passive investor, limited partner, general partner, however you want to talk about it, I think that there's like a foundational understanding of investing in commercial real estate, kind of what your baseline knowledge is. So that would be number one. And number two is, and the reason for that is fairly, I think, straightforward. And that is, you don't want to get into a situation or an investment that is flawed from the get-go. And on top of that is relationships. So who are the right people to, what's the word? I'm trying to say it in a very diplomatic way, but you want to be around people that are honest and sincere. And unfortunately, in the world of commercial real estate, because the stakes are so high when you're dealing in 7, 8, 9-figure properties, there's some amazing people, and there are people that would take advantage of you. And I think that's that happens in all different types of industries. But when you're dealing in really big numbers, the consequences of making the wrong decision are amplified. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. So if you are considering investing in commercial real estate or raising capital, I'll tell you a little bit about, like, this is kind of the ad. So if you want to jump off right now, that's totally fine. I don't ever pitch my services, at least from my perspective, but I'll tell you a little bit about what it is that I do at a very high level, because people can come back and listen to this, and I'll be able to point people that are considering working with me in the future to this episode and video. So ideally, this is for real estate investors and professionals or business owners that have a high income, right? You're earning 6 figures plus, or you've been a real estate investor for 5+ years. I don't teach the basics of real estate investing. There's lots of people that do that. That's not my specialty. This is for someone that has capital, usually $250,000 plus. It doesn't have to be in your bank, but you have access to it. All right. You already have invested in real estate. I don't convince anybody to commercial real estate. There's pros and cons. I don't think that there's one perfect way to invest in anything. And depending on where you're at, there's some investors in my deals that are what I would call ultra wealthy, right? 50 million plus, and they diversify. So they put some of their investments into commercial real estate, and they put some of the money into into the market and companies and all that. So it really depends on where you're at and what it is that you're looking for. I personally, I'm a big believer in it, hence why I do it. But we'll just kind of leave it at that. I would say the last thing is typically people that come through and work with me are hungry, proactive, and they take action. I kind of tell investors that I'm not going to work harder on your deals than you are. And I care a lot about the people that I work with. And so I do take it personal when they don't take action. And so I figure, you know what, why don't I at least put that out there right now so that there's proper expectations coming in? And I think that that's important because, like I said, investing in commercial real estate is not easy. It's not simple. It's not fast. But when you can replace a six-figure income with a property, as long as it's the right property and you have enough equity and whatnot, in my mind, it's worth it, right? Like I see physicians or doctors that will spend 10 years getting a profession to be able to make very good money. And yet what's interesting is in some cases, people won't spend 3 to 6 months to get a skill set to be able to invest that money safely and with confidence. And whether it's with me or with someone else, or just even taking the time to learn it, I think it's a valuable skill, right? Because making money is one thing, keeping it and growing it is kind of a separate skill set. So I think we'll leave it at that. I would say 2 mistakes that I typically see newer real estate investors making as they kind of make the transition into commercial real estate. Number 1, trying to do it all on their own. And what I mean by this is like going on YouTube or reading books and really trying to hack and figure out how to do something on your own. Look, I think the podcast and the books and everything like that is incredible. I mean, if you saw my office, I have a lot of it. But even when I get into deals, I surround myself with the right people because a mistake is too costly. And in the world of commercial real estate, it is very much a relationship-driven game. So I would say that's number 1. Number 2 is waiting for the perfect time. What I find very interesting is seeing investors procrastinating and waiting for, I'm not exactly sure what it is that they're waiting for, but I am sensitive to it because I know for myself, I just completed 75 hard. And so if you don't know about that, you can kind of Google it and see what it's all about. But I'd known about it for 2 years and I was waiting for quote unquote the perfect time. And all I can say is that I hit threshold where there was enough pain, meaning I saw a picture of myself and I was so pissed off and upset that I said, you know what? I got to take some proactive action. And I just went after it. And I did it over Christmas. So the timing was horrible, but I realized that it was important enough for me to commit and do it. And all I can say is looking back, I'm very happy that I did it. And so if I can, if investing in commercial real estate is something that you are committed to doing, then do it. If it's not, if it's a hobby or it's something that you're kind of interested in, then certainly just kind of, stand back and watch and wait and see. But what I would say is there'll never be a perfect time because there's always going to be things that come up. So I would just kind of offer you that. And I think that that's really what I want to end off on. It's 10:01. I got to roll. Look, if you're interested and serious about investing in commercial real estate, go to my website, shanemelanson.com. You can send me an email at shane@shanemelanson. That's my private email. So please respect it. If you're interested in what it is that I do, I'll send you some resources. I'll send you a quick video explaining what it is that I do, who I helped, and we'll go from there. So that's it. I got to roll. We'll see you next week.